Yeah.
But I was just gonna say real quick, Blue Red Delver might be the best Delver deck right now. But let's go to the matches.
Okay. Can you see? Can you actually just follow on the thing? Is that easier for you or no?
Can you share your screen because
Yeah.
if I watch on Twitch, it's gonna be delayed.
I'm also watching on Twitch though, so it shouldn't be delayed. But
Okay, all right, well that's fine then. Um, all right. So yeah, looks like they're about to get started. What do we see here? Is that Grixis Delver or maybe Grixis Control?
yeah, it looks like Grixis control. Oh, and what? This is it. Is this Dark Depths
Oh
already?
yeah, this is my deck. Nice.
Holy moly!
Um, all right, cool. I guess we'll get to see it on camera. That's awesome.
Would you keep his hand?
So Grixis Control against Slow Depths. Slow Depths is very favored, because they don't have many good ways to deal with the 2020. Like they have Jace Unsummon and Diabolic Edict, and Jace Unsummon is a sorcery, and Diabolic Edict, like A, you can use discard to strip it, or B, you actually, unlike the other Turbo Dex deck, you play a bunch of creatures. You play Dryad Arbor in the sideboard, so it's not hard to just like have a couple creatures in play. So I definitely think Turbo Dex depth or Slow Depths is pretty favored in this matchup. Um, so yeah, we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, if I would also agree with you in that situation. It's kind of interesting that like Dark Confidant like has like multi-purpose. I mean, it's probably gonna get just like shotgun down on site, but like when we play tested the matchup, you did like a lot of interesting tactics, just like leading with a turn one Thoughtseize or something like that into a turn two Dark Confidant or even a Sylvan Safekeeper. Now with the hand that the Dark Depths player has kept right now, how do you feel about it? I mean, it looks like they have like a turn two or three, not turn two, sorry, turn three or four combo maybe.
Yeah, yeah, this hand's great, and Tully agrees. This hand, he has two Sylvan Scryings, um, and so he's able to just like quickly assemble the combo and put the pressure onto. Okay, so it looks like it's actually Kenji Sumor, the Hall of Famer, and wow, so it looks like both of these players are 8-0. So it looks like I was right about this Turbo Dex deck, and
Yeah.
maybe I should be there right now, but
Yeah,
what
so
can you do?
I mean, look at the redundancy. This is what I'm talking about, right? So like the first the first Sylvan Scrying got Force Willed, and now
Uh,
like oh, this is interesting. So the first
This
yeah,
worked out perfectly for him because he just drew Hex Mage, so now he doesn't even
exactly.
need the Thespian stage, so he just gets a Dark Depths here, and we'll make a 2020 next turn.
That's pretty absurd. And he's also got Urborg, right? So he can even tap the Dark Depths for mana.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, Urborg is the best mana producing land in this deck because it allows your Dark Depths to tap for mana, so it's basically like in many situations it's like a 2 mana land.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, you are exactly, and that's something that I think is really actually frustrating. From like the perspective of a control deck because really we don't usually have ways to attack your mana or anything like that. So I mean, like Urborg is pretty much
well,
all
you have
upside.
like Miracles has like back to basics, but we have like Abrupt Decay for that. Um,
Ooh, look at that. Kenji's using the Urborg to tap his Bloodstained Mire for black to cast the Baleful Strix. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, so that like basically preserves the option of like brainstorm fetch land.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a smart play by Kenji. And the Baleful Strix should be able to stonewall the Dark Depths for at least one turn, and that'll be the pivotal turn where let's see, so he makes 2020 this turn, he plays his third land drop. The next turn he potentially can go for a Jace to unsummon the Dark Depths.
Right.
So
Ooh, but this is
but
what you were talking about.
yeah.
Using discard to like strip any of the key answers, and this is also coming like the turn before the combo too, or the turn of the combo actually. So that's extremely powerful. Holy moly!
Yep, exactly. And he might also have Abrupt Decay in his hand.
The Baleful Strix doesn't
So
even cut
like
it. Yeah.
the Strix won't even be able to block. The other thing this deck has is the Jerry Step. So if he ever top decks like a crop rotation, he can get that and go through the Strix as well.
Okay.
So I think Kenji, if Fujita has a Abrupt Decay, I think the game's just over. Like Kenji could have like a main deck Edict or something weird, but
Yeah, I know Grixis typically has trouble with indestructible. I mean, Diabolic Edict seems to be like the only card that I've actually seen do anything. I mean, are there any other cards that they could potentially have besides Edict or Jace that maybe Kenji's got somewhere in his deck? Probably not, right?
no, those are like yeah, Edict would be like the likely answer, and all it would do here would it would kill the Hex Mage and buy some time.
Hmm.
Um, So I think this game's probably over. Yeah, so one spicy card I played against on Magic Online, that made me realize, hey, maybe I want to put down this deck just for a little bit, just so the hate might die off a little bit. Is I played against the card Backlash.
Backlash.
What Backlash does is it's one, a black, and a red. To tap target creature, that creature deals damage equal to its power to its controller. So that's the actual best card against Merit Lodge.
That's actually literally hilarious. You make a 2020 and then you die. So Kenji kept off the ponder, which is really interesting. I mean, I don't think there's a. I don't know of any outs at this point, but maybe he's hoping that he can chump block with the Baleful Strix and then play something else
Right.
the next turn.
Yeah, like if I were Kenji, I would have kept a Jace or a card that helps me find Jace,
Right.
or Edict, I guess.
Yeah, that's pretty much
Um,
the only options that you could actually keep at that point.
yeah, and you see him here shuffling again, or using the fetch land to ponder. So that heads up play from earlier did buy him a couple extra looks, but it looks like he's shuffling again. So, um, yeah.
Yeah. Another interesting thing is that we see in Kenji's hand that he's got like a lot of copies of Lightning Bolt, just like kind of like not doing anything. So I think the Mox Diamond pretty clearly indicates that his opponent Fujita is playing the slower version. So like the bolts right now look kind of embarrassing against an indestructible 2020. Do you think he's supposed to keep them in post board? I mean, like Dark Confidant is frightening when it's drawing you a bunch of cards. Okay, well, yeah, and that's the match over there after the Abrupt Decay. But then
Yeah,
it's just like
he just drew a decay. I don't even know. He might have just had two.
okay,
But yeah, that's game one right there. And you see how like a lot of these games play out is like they have Baleful Strix, but you have many ways to counterplay that. Post board, it gets a little bit harder because again, I expect Kenji to have at least two Diabolic Edicts, um, and maybe some other cards. So he's playing the Grixis version. I know the check pile is a little bit tougher of a matchup because they typically play like Assassin's Trophy, which is also pretty effective against Dark Depths.
Mhm.
You can kill the Dark Depths with the trigger on the stack, so that's an effective tool. But being Grixis colored, I think he is more limited in his options, and he'll probably just have Diabolic Edicts.
Did you make a
I
side?
do think he's supposed to keep in Lightning Bolt because you want removal for Dark Confidant. Like Fatal Push would be the card I would expect him to like potentially side out.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and looking at the way that the Dark Depths player is sideboarding right now, the first thing he's definitely cut is the Mox Diamonds. I think that makes a lot of sense because this is a much slower matchup from you know the fact that his opponent's playing Grixis like just a blue control Dirtle deck. What are the cards you're looking to bring in from the depth side?
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't get a great look at all the cards he took out. Like I almost thought I saw Dark Depths in that pile, but that would almost certainly like be wrong, or he
Right.
might just have accidentally put it there. Um, so let me pull up what I do for this matchup. In this matchup, I board out Safekeeper, Wasteland, and Bog, and I bring in Choke, Liliana the Last Hope, Duress, and Dryad Arbor. His board is configured significantly differently than mine. Like I saw cards like Pithing Needle, Rite of Consumption, um, which so I haven't been playing. Pithing Needle is not great. It stops Jace, but they're gonna have something like Kolaghan's commands for your like Mox Diamonds. So I don't love Pithing Needle, but it's not completely useless, but I just don't love it.
Hmm.
And what else did we see? We saw Bitter Blossom. Bitter Blossom I would bring in because it's another way to counter Diabolic Edict. I personally haven't been playing with Bitter Blossom because I don't think it's a very powerful card. You really need it on like turn 2 for it to do its thing. And sometimes, you'll just top deck it later and it'll be fairly useless. And even if you do have it on turn 2 against Miracles, like that's where you want it. Um, you can find that like Miracles can just like power through it with Mentor and Treat without too much difficulty. Um, Now that's interesting. We just saw the one advantage to Grixis colors compared to check pile is you get to bring in Blood Moon. And so that's something that like Grixis control lists have adopted since the GP. Not everybody is on it, but certainly some people at the SCG Open in Baltimore started playing it. And so I'm curious as to if it's on the depths player's radar. And it looks like he's keeping in his decays anyways because he would keep them in um, just for like Baleful Strix. And looks like he agrees with me. He's taking out the needle. I Or what is this? No, that's a card. No, this must be the pile of cards that he's not playing. Um, so I have never ever boarded out crop rotation. It is literally just broken in half. Like it literally says win the game on it. Um, I sort of understand why you would consider taking some out. I also don't like the fact that he's bringing in surgical. Um, like you could consider taking some out if you expect it to be countered, but like the upside is just so high that the card literally just says win the game on it. So I wouldn't ever take any out. What else did I see? So I saw surgical, which I don't like in this matchup. I love it against Swords to Plowshares decks because those decks like pretty much plow is usually their only way of cleanly answering Merit Lodge. Like they might have something like Terminus or Celestial Purge, but Purge is less common, and Terminus requires like a significant setup. In which case, Surgical can also mess with Terminus too. So I do really like Surgical against Miracles, but against Grixis Control, like it's just not doing enough in my opinion. Like you can maybe nab an Edict, but again they only play two, so it's kind of just like I don't know. I just don't like that card at all in this matchup.
Okay, so here's one more question for you then. So we talked a little bit about the Dark Depth side, but now from Kenji's perspective, what is Kenji's actual game plan going into this next game? Because we know that Kenji like is going to be bringing in cards like Diabolic Edict and stuff like that. He was debating about bringing his own surgicals in, and I kind of agree. Like the surgical from Kenji's side seems a little bit suspect because I mean maybe if you compare it with like discard, you can maybe like get rid of all of the decays or maybe all of the like Dark Confidants or like whatever problematic cards there are. Even if you hit like Dark Depths after survive, there's a really good chance you'd be able to win. But what about the rest of his deck? Like what is he looking for in his 7-card hands, and what are some of the medium 7-card hands that he like can't mulligan but isn't really happy about?
Yeah, so on Kenji's side, I think surgical is a lot more reasonable to bring in. And here's why. It's because if you're able to stop the first Merit Lodge, whether, it's, with a Diabolic Edict or Jace Unsummon, then you can surgical Dark Depths and then it'll be gone for the rest of the game. In addition, you can also potentially nab a life from the loam. So from that perspective, I think it's a lot more reasonable for Kenji to bring it in than for the Depths player.
Hmm.
So that's kind of why surgical is used, and obviously in conjunction with a discard, sometimes you just like have a surgical nab another card, and so then that's always like it can be worth a card. But on the other side, it's just like usually not worth a card.
Right, makes sense. One question I have, oh, shit, I had a question in my head that I was going to ask regarding. Oh right, what is the backup plan for Dark Depth? This Dark Depths deck, like if Dark Depths does get extracted, what do you do?
So it's pretty hard to win. Against some matchups, you can win with Dorky Beats. Grixis Control is a little bit tougher because they play like removal, like Bolt and K Command. Um, but I would say Bitter Blossom would be an avenue, and Liliana the Last Hope emblem is another avenue if he has that.
Gotcha.
All
Okay.
right, so looking at these hands,
Yeah. Kenji's hand was pretty cool, but let's talk about this hand first, and then we'll talk about Kenji's.
yeah, this hand is really awkward because you have two Urborgs and a Dryad Arbor as your mana source. And Grixis Control doesn't play Wasteland, but they do play removal. So, I mean, this is a hand that I would chip.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the Death player recognized that. Like, this hand is just a little bit too awkward. Like, I'm gonna be either like binning a land to like cast my Dark Confidant, or I'm gonna just like be set so far behind if he has a removal spell.
Yeah.
So I think he recognized that, and in this deck, it's totally fine to go to like 6 or even 5 because like you have so many 2-card combos built into your deck.
Right.
So I think it plays a little bit more like a Bonder deck in many senses, in which like you're supposed to mulligan for like a reasonable hand. Like you don't really have access to that much selection outside of your tutors. But I think it was a smart mulligan.
Gotcha. So Kenji's hand was a bunch.
This hand is much better. At first glance, it looked kind of similar because it had the Urborg, Dried Arbor, and Bobs. But this one at least has some other lands, so you can just go ahead and cast your Confidants.
Yeah. So Kenji's going to lead with the turn 1 Inquisition of Kozilek, and he's going to take a Dark Confidant. And this is, probably the most straightforward play. Dark Confidant's like the scariest card in Fujita's hand. Next turn, Kenji has the option of playing Himba Torok or the Thoughtseize. If I'm in Kenji's position, I'm probably gonna play the Thoughtseize. What would you do?
So why would you play the Thoughtseize?
Just because I'm like, if I don't hit the Dark Confidant, like that's the only card in Fujita's hand that does anything. And I don't know. I mean, he might top deck something pretty scary. Oh, like a Hymn to Torak. Okay, that's powerful. um,
Mhm. Okay, yeah, no, that's super interesting. I agree with your assessment that because he kind of saw his hand, then it's pretty reasonable just to play Thoughtseize. And well, I mean, it would be nice for the Thoughtseize to like hit Thespian stage too. But it's definitely not a like priority. Like if he doesn't have an answer for the Confidant, then I agree taking Confidant is 100% correct there.
right. So one thing that was really interesting though is that Kenji doesn't have a blue source in his hand, and now he's got this copy of Ponder and Flusterstorm that are kind of just like left stranded. Um,
Yeah, so I guess he kept a hand with no blue sources, but it had potentially 3 discard spells.
mhm.
Um, which like I don't know, it's tough to I guess you can't mulligan a hand with 3 discard spells, but to be honest, discard's like not even completely effective. Like what if Fujita just had a hand that was like Urborg, Dark Depths, Thespian Stage, then your hand would just like literally lose.
Yeah.
But again, I guess like, not all hands are set up that way, so I don't know if you can necessarily mulligan. And I guess you can also hope that him could nab the land. So I think his keep was fine, but I think he basically needs to find a way to play a Blood Moon or set up a card advantage engine. And now he's like kind of stuck.
Yeah.
So
I mean, this was interesting too. That Kenji decided to take the Dark Confidant instead of the Hymn to Torok. Maybe that makes a lot. Then maybe that makes more sense when you consider the blue cards can't get cast anyways, and the Dark Confidant, like he did have the K command at the time, but he didn't have the third land. So if he misses on the draw step, then Dark Confidant probably just takes over the game. So for that reason, he's just playing it super conservatively and just saying, look, if I can just slow you down a little bit, maybe I can maybe like draw out of it, get some lands, get these cantrips online, and there it is, Bloodstained Mire off the top. Um, should
mhm.
be
I think the damage is done though because Kenji's hand is so weak
hmm,
that like Fujita realized this and he's just like, okay, I'll just take Brainstorm. Like those 2 cards in your hand like effectively do almost nothing. So he was just totally fine with like being in this spot. So I think the land just came a turn too late to really be too effective.
right.
So now like it looks like he's pretty aware of Blood Moon. So he's making some extra basics
Yep, smart,
um,
smart. He's
with
probably
Thespian
copying the
Stage.
swamp here, right?
Um, it looks like he copied the forest. I
Okay, yeah.
probably would have copied the swamp because
Well, actually, no, there's an
you can
Urborg in play
cast
though,
decay off
so
of it.
yep.
So this is interesting. Given that Fujita knows the other player's hand, I would just go ahead and play Dryad Arbor and just hope that he like kills it. I don't like playing the Bob here because like he's literally just going to kill it. So like
Yeah.
this was like 100% expected, and I would have played the Dryad Arbor to like kind of bait him,
Hmm.
to see if he like fell for it, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, this is
Um,
ooh, there's Bitter Blossom. Now that's pretty good, right? I mean, it loses to Sajiri Step, but like everything does. But so this at least will make like a just like a constant train of 1/1s that can just go on perma blocking duty. Uh,
mhm.
NG. One thing that I wanted to ask was, I mean, like one reason that Fujita maybe played the Dark Confidant was like there's no way that he's going to get rid of the K command. I guess he could top deck discard though, so there wasn't necessarily a rush to play it right then and there. Um,
Yeah, I mean, literally playing the Confidant does absolutely nothing. It plays right into your opponent's mana. It's not like your opponent was going to do anything anyways. So there's literally zero reason to play the Confidant there. I would wait for a discard spell or just kind of hope that he fired it off on the Dryad Arbor. And if he
gotcha.
didn't fire it off on the Dryad Arbor, like again, I still wouldn't play it. There's just absolutely no point. The only point would be like so that your second Bob is live, but you've already lost 2, so it's super unlikely. Oh, Jace is going to be able to close this game out quickly, I think.
Yeah,
So
Jason's
that
really good here.
like in conjunction with the Bitter Blossom. Well, I guess the Bitter Blossom's just not going to do that much because Fujita has the Sajiri step. But if Kenji's able to him it away, the Bitter Blossom and the Jace are going to be really hard to beat.
Right. So one thing that I'm actually a little bit worried about, and this is how I don't know how you want to balance this, but I mean, Kenji is very clearly going for the brainstorm, at least right there. But Vampire Hexmage is a pretty sweet out to Jace the Mind Sculptor. Just, play it, take off the counters from Jace, and then Jace dies. Do you think Kenji needs to start Fate Sealing immediately? I mean, like, if you look at Fujita's board state, this is probably one of the I don't know if I want to call it a weakness of the deck, but like you're not playing blue, so you can't really sculpt your turns. You kind of just rely on the redundancy. But when you don't have that, you kind of just like relying on the top of your deck. So that could make a real argument for just Fate Sealing with the Jace almost immediately. But we do see the Hall of Famer.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know, like as a Miracles player, what would you do? I guess Miracles has like more cards like Swords to Plowshares that are just like live. Like my instinct would be to like, assuming you have enough live cards in your deck, I would just keep brainstorming until you have like, some cushion and some protection against like a Merit Lodge outside of your Bitter Blossoms.
And there it is, the first attack from the Bitter Blossom token. Let's see if they can get there. I guess one thing to consider though is that if you do Fate Seal Fujita, he could like Ghost Quarter his own land to shuffle the deck, and that could lead to some like like a window where Fujita can do something pretty crazy. So I don't know if Kenji, like maybe he's just also brainstorming because he just doesn't have it, right? Because we saw his original hand, it had like a bunch of like early interaction, but like no actual answer to the Merit Lodge. And like all Bitter Blossom is good, things like the Jury Step, like you mentioned, do get around that. Let's see what Kenji does here in response to this duress. We haven't actually got did we get a good look at what Kenji's drawn into at this point?
Yeah, it looks like Kenji's hand is Edict, Fatal Push, and Snapcaster Mage.
Okay. I could have sworn I saw Fujita board out the Bajuka Bog. That is a Fatal Push, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Bog is relevant enough in this matchup. Because it's just like, in order for it to counter Snapcaster Mage, you need a crop rotation, and usually your crop rotation is going to be worth more. And otherwise, you might like randomly draw and then bog them, but like it's definitely just. I mean, it's fine to leave in, but you would almost never crop rotate for it.
Right. Why do you think Kenji left the Diabolic Edict in his hand and not on top of his deck? Do you think he's like making the heads up play against top deck Assassin's Trophy? Oh, there it is.
Well, Kenji didn't know exactly what Fujita had. Like, Fujita could have easily had crop rotation in his hand, so he could have gone ends up crop rotation, in which case Kenji could have responded with Fatal Push Edict. Okay. So I think it was a pretty reasonable play for him to leave it in his hand.
Okay, makes sense. I guess there's also the consideration of actually just Ghost Quarter being in play means that you can't really rely on hiding cards on top of your deck. I want to give a quick shout out to Assassin's Trophy, which is probably the most. I remember we talked about it a long time ago, and we were both like, Assassin's Trophy, not so good, in we projected it to be not so good in Legacy, but after having played against it a little bit, just online and queues and stuff like that, that card is like, killing Jace is far more powerful than I originally gave credit for, despite the fact that there's so many restrictions behind Assassin's Trophy.
Yeah, I think Trophy's obviously Legacy playable, but I think in enough situations it's going to be generally, we got the crop rotation there, so that's a really good draw. In enough situations it's going to be worse than Decay. So I think there are certain specific decks and situations where it's a lot better than Decay. For example, in the sideboard of Black Red Reanimator, they really care about Leyline of the Void, so Trophy is going to be better there. And for example, in Elves, they don't really care as much about giving you a land because they're going to go over the top of what you do. They care more about your card advantage engines and other lands because they have no other ways to answer lands. So I think Trophy in those two particular spots is really superior to Decay. But in general, I like Decay more because it's just a safer card. Now, what was really interesting is Fujita didn't go for the combo.
Okay.
And I guess that makes sense to me because he knows about Fatal Push and Snapcaster Mage. And if he went for the combo, he could have just gone for, Push, Edict. Now, what's crazy to me is he's not going for this Hymn to Torok.
Yeah.
So
if you're not, see that's weird because he's just not using his mana and all. I mean, I did like the thought of maybe like you just play the Hymn to Torah, get rid of the cards or like set up so that the next turn that your combo can go off. But I mean, I'm sure Fujita might have a plan here for what he wants to be doing. Brainstorm though, Pretty.
Well, I just don't understand why you would hold the him. Like that is like literally makes no sense to me.
Hmm.
Um, because I don't think it's really getting better for him. Like,
Yeah, I'm not so
and
sure there is
soon,
either. Well, he does know about the
like,
Flusterstorm, right? Does the Flusterstorm change the calculus?
no, the Flusterstorm's gone.
Okay. Yeah.
He shuffles it away.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense actually. Um. Yeah. Then I'm not really sure why you'd hold on to the.
Okay, well, why would you go for it now? You know he has Snapcaster Mage in his hand. Like, what's going on?
I mean, this might be like a do or die situation where there's just enough, tokens in play for a lethal attack the next turn, and you just like have to do it. And here he might have realized that he was supposed to, or he could have played the Himdatark a
Well,
little bit earlier.
he was supposed to him last turn and make the token this turn, but
Hmm.
now it's too late.
Well,
Um,
not really, right? Because of the Urborg. No, he doesn't have enough mana to. Wait, no, he might if he draws a
um,
land.
yeah, he needed another land,
Okay,
which he didn't. So,
yeah. There is a Hex Mage there though, but he can't play the Hex Mage, the him, and crop rotation all in one turn. Or is that not? That's not a Hex Mage. That's something else. Sylvan Safekeeper. There we go.
Safekeeper. See, like this card is completely dead in this matchup. I don't know why it's in his deck. Like, I mean, it can eat a like. It's not completely dead because you can eat Edict, you can protect your Dark Confidants, but it is just like so like mediocre that like I don't know. I didn't like how he sideboarded. Boarding out of crop rotation is insane. Like I think Negator in the chat is a known Dark Depths expert, and he was agreeing with me. There are zero matchups you board out your best. It's literally the best card in the deck. You know, outside of like, I guess you could say Dark Depths is the best card in the deck, but like in general, crop rotation is your most flexible card, and it just kind of wins you the game in so many spots.
Right. Well, let's see what Fujita decides to do here. This is his last turn. If he is unable to, I mean, like if you're gonna lose, you might as well just cast the Himdatara, get some information, maybe into how Kenji sideboarded, then you can adapt accordingly.
Yeah, and looks like that's what he's gonna go for here.
I like
I
the
also like that like these players. I don't know like what the best way to phrase this, but I love talking shit about players. I like calling shots, and when they're doing something bad, I like calling them out for it. So I guess it's slightly helpful that they're all like from Japan and are definitely not watching this. So like I'm not hurting anybody's feelings, but this guy is making some play mistakes. So there you have it.
big yikes. I mean, it is what it is. I think that's okay. There's a lot of pressure under the camera playing against, a Hall of Famer. Kenji is going to take game 2 here, so we are going to see a game 3. I wonder if the backup match will also get a glimpse of that. That would be pretty exciting.
Well, okay, so here's the other thing. I'm saying he's making magic mistakes. I'm not saying he's a bad human being or anything like that. Like this is why like I'm always like annoyed because commentators always feel like, they need to be politically correct. They need to be like, "Oh, like they need to dance around saying like, "Oh, this player made a bad play" because they don't want to make it seem like they're shitting on the player. I'm not trying to like shit on the player. I'm just trying to say like what's happening, which is he's making play mistakes. So I don't know. Do you think like you watch a lot of like league coverage stuff like that? Like, do you think they also like dance around this topic, or are they more like direct in their criticisms?
I think okay, so like if you want me to talk about league, like sometimes in coverage, like a player might like make a really bad decision, like run straight forward into like a bush with hidden information, and then just get completely destroyed by other champions that were there. And in that sort of situation, the commentators would be like, "Oh, how unfortunate," or something like that, but they would never be like, "This guy sucks at the game," kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like there's always like a because
Yeah.
let's be honest, this guy is 8-0 right now at a Grand Prix.
Yeah, I don't think he's bad by any stretch. Like he's definitely shown some heads up plays by like selecting the spot for when he uses his discard spells. Mulliganing like a hand that looked like it was playable, but in hindsight should have been mulligan. So he made some good plays,
Mm-hmm.
and he's 8-0, so I'm sure he's like a pretty reasonable player. I'm just saying I disagree with some of the plays
Sure.
and some of the ways he's been sideboarding that I've seen so far.
I,
So
mean, I think
I'm not trying to say he's bad. I'm just trying to say like I disagree with these plays, kind of.
yeah, and I mean
Um,
that kind of communication does foster like a discussion, I guess, if you think about it, right? So you're saying keep the crop rotation and it's really good, and your subset of testing is what you use to back that up. Now that is interesting. That sorry, just really quickly, he's pointing to the Toxic Deluge, for the Bitter
Are these
Blossom.
the cards? These are the cards that are sideboarded out, right?
I actually can't tell.
Yeah. Okay. These are out. So there's also okay. There's a dark depths. What is happening? There's a dark depths in that pile. Like signing out crop rotation. is like just I don't know. I'm trying to think of a way you could justify it, but like I guess you could justify it being like, oh, it's bad against counter spells. Why would you side out Dark Depths when it's your only way you can win? Like that seems like absurdly crazy to me.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
I can't really think of any reason. Like yes, it's dead in multiples, but like if you never draw it, you're never going to win.
mhm.
Uh, or like very rarely can you win with like Bitter Blossom. So that is just my mind is being blown right now.
Right. And this is really interesting. Kenji is debating. He's making a couple minor adjustments to his deck as well. I think I saw him take out one copy of the Flusterstorm. I don't know if he's going to keep it in or
Yeah,
not.
I mean,
That's
I
what.
would have like I mentioned how I sideboard in this matchup already. Like I would leave in Decay, I would leave in Dark Depths crop rotation.
Mhm.
This matchup's almost completely about like you use your discard spells and you try to line up your either Dark Confidants or Dark Depths, and then you'll have answers for their like Baleful Strix or Edict.
Right.
Like those are the key cards in this matchup. Blood Moon also is a very key card. And actually, he's going to be punished a little bit for boarding out the Decay because he'll have one flip fewer if Kenji lands the Blood Moon.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the Blood
Sorry,
Moon was a
that's my
big
dog Pelly.
Blood Moon was a big target. I did see Liliana the Last Hope, and that was kind of sweet too. Is this the life of a Dark Depths player? Just like hand on the side, waiting for the next round to start because you finished too fast or something like that. That's cute. But I did see things like the Liliana the Last Hope, which is pretty good against like Sylvan Safekeeper, Vampire Hexmage, not really, but Dark Confidant is really good against that too. So that is one less answer in total that he's going to have to, like the uptick of cards that Kenji is bringing in. Let's see if the Abrupt Decay makes that big of a difference. There is still the Assassin's Trophy, but imagine there might be like a 2-1 split of the cards left in the deck post board.
Hmm. And yeah, actually, I was playing Assassin's Trophy in my sideboard, but I just like prefer Abrupt Decay against these blue decks.
Mm-hmm.
Like you lose the ability to kill Jace, but like realistically speaking, when their Jace like brainstorms, even just say it brainstorms once and then you trophy it, they still are getting like a bunch of cards out of it.
Right.
So I just don't think it's necessarily like a winning strategy, and I would just rather have the Decay because it's uncounterable.
Yeah.
Um,
You know what I really do like about, and this is something that I don't know if you've mentioned or seen before, but like the way that in Japan it's just customary to fan out your sideboard and stuff like that. I know a lot of people have mentioned that to me before, and also for 7-card hands. It looks like, yeah, this hand is certainly a mulligan. Vegeta is going
wait,
to
this hand with half his deck, or what was the hand?
it had like Thoughtseize, I think shit, I'm already forgetting. Whatever. Anyways,
Because you said this hand was bad, and I look up, and
he just like had half his deck in his hand, right?
Like, I would
Yeah.
have kept that.
And just like discard
Tully,
every.
come here.
Oh, is Tully gonna
All right,
make
all
a
right.
feature?
I thought Tully wanted to make a showing, but
Okay.
he's being coy.
Well, even on a mulligan to 6, I think Fujita's chances are still pretty real here. Something as simple as like a turn 1 Thoughtseize into a turn 2 Dark Confidant, or like a turn 1 Urborg Thoughtseize, turn 2 Hexmage Dark Depths is still gonna be very good. Genji did keep his 7 though, so that means he must have some sort of early interaction that is gonna be very good. What do you think about this hand?
Um, again, I don't like the safekeepers. I don't really think it does much in this matchup.
Mhm.
Like, this hand is like almost completely dead, so it's kind of like a 5-card hand. But I would definitely keep it.
Okay.
Well, let's see. I mean, you have Thoughtseize into Bitter Blossom. I mean, you can't really mulligan that, but I don't think like Bitter Blossom definitely doesn't win the game. It's just some Edict insurance.
Yeah.
Um,
I was gonna say, yeah, Bitter Blossom is really powerful, and it definitely has seen like a rise in play as of late. But it's not exactly a game ender like Confidant or like just a Merilage is. And it's funny that I'm saying that Dark Confidant is something like a game ender, but this is interesting. Thoughtseize. Oh, and there's the Blood Moon in Kenji's hand. Wow. Having fetched for the Bayou means that maybe Fujita didn't really believe that the Blood Moon was gonna come in, but
I think he probably just didn't have it on his radar.
wait a minute.
Um,
Whoa. Kenji's hand is insane here. I mean, he doesn't have land for the Blood Moon, but still Edict, Snapcaster, Pierce, and a Blood Moon. Like, that's a lot of like relevant interaction.
yeah, in this spot, I would just take the Spell Pierce and try to land the Bitter Blossom. You have a Verdant in your hand, so you can fetch for yeah, and it looks like he agrees with me. You can fetch for a forest.
Hmm.
Um, you'll still need the swamp to cast the trophy, but you can also just have mana up on the turn they cast the Blood Moon, and that can be, effective as well.
Gotcha. So it looks like Kenji did draw his third land for the turn, hitting between the Snapcaster and the
Looks
other
like it's a
card.
fetch land.
All right, well, there's a Vampire Hexmate. But I mean, yeah, your hand, Vegeta said to play turn 2 Bitter Blossom, so you
Okay,
just
so
go
yeah, I
for
guess
it.
he's gonna get a swamp because he drew the Hex Mage.
Right.
And yeah, swamp makes sense anyways. Forest would make sense if he had like Green Sun Zenith for Reclamation Sage.
Hmm.
But yes. Wait. Okay. Why is he getting the forest? That is interesting. Given that he has a Hex Mage in his hand, Does he have another land?
We'll get another look really quickly.
I don't think he has another land. So if he top decks Dark Depths, he could get punished here.
Right. Okay, and this Baleful Strix makes things a lot trickier too now. Like, not only do you get to stop the first shot of Merit Lodge coming in. Oh yeah, he doesn't have another land. It's a Dryad Arbor that he just drew. All right, well, let's see if the black comes to
Yeah.
punish him later.
Okay.
But yeah, like, I mean, now the Baleful Strix means that Jace is also an out Merit Lodge.
Right. Yeah, you need like Sajiri Step or well he has Trophy, but all right, looks like this is probably the turn Kenji's gonna go for a Blood Moon.
Okay.
Unless he kind of has the read that Fujita's on Decay or Trophy, in which case he would want to play it on a turn where Fujita taps lower. So I guess it would have to depend a little bit. Wow, okay. That's very interesting.
Chose not to block or what?
Yeah,
Or chose to attack?
well, both decisions were somewhat interesting. So it looks like yeah, Kenji's like, well, you probably have Decay, so I'm not gonna bother.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he drew another double black spell that he can't cast.
There it is. That's the punish.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he can trophy his Dryad Arbor, but yeah, that I think he definitely is getting punished for fetching the wrong land here. I'm like, I'm surprised both players attacked because I mean, I guess like Kenji does play Burn in his deck, and the way to beat Bitter Blossom is to pressure their life total.
Do you think Kenji maybe drew like a Kolaghan's command or like wanted to trade the Baleful Strix off with the? Yep, there it is. Okay, that makes sense. Then that's a reason to trade.
Yeah,
them.
you're right. That was it. He just wanted to return the Baleful Strix with the K command.
Right.
So you're right. Kenji's play makes sense. And I guess Fujita maybe saw that as a potential line, so then he chose not to block. Because if I was thinking in Fujita's shoes, I would have snap blocked so that like chump Merit Lodge into Jace wasn't an option anymore.
Right.
But it's possible he was considering the K command.
Oh.
So
Oop, the bar is going. The advantage bar is.
all right. Well, we see the Sylvan Safekeeper being put to very good use now. As I said, it was a dead card, so he wasted half of Kenji's discard.
Nice. It's interesting. So why do you think Kenji went for the token here instead of the Dryad Arbor? I guess they're both equally good against Diabolic Edict, but the Arbor still makes mana, which could be relevant. I mean, I don't know. Actually, I'm not gonna pretend like I know better.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess, like, yeah, the Arbor making mana is relevant. The fact that it's a land is also relevant for crop rotation.
Hmm.
So, I mean, the only thing being flying relevant would be for blocking the Baleful Strix.
Yeah.
But again, he's just gonna have a bunch of tokens, so I think I probably would have gone for the Dryad Arbor as well,
Okay.
unless he was like playing around crop rotation, for example. Then,
and that's kind of interesting. Actually, one thing we saw just now. So obviously we're fetching the swamp here to prep around Blood Moon or whatever else we you might. But Kenji actively kept the Hymn to Torok here to sort of just like pummel the black green deck further and further into the ground. Like this is typically what the Grixis deck is really good at, right? You use a couple 2-for-1s to sort of like steal the lead a little bit. You block a creature with the Baleful Strix or like Snapcaster back a cantrip or something like that. and then you start snowballing even harder because you just keep pummeling them into the dirt over and over again with these 2-for-1s. Like at this point, what Fujita has one card now.
Mm-hmm. He just drew a card for turn,
Okay,
so
so
he has two.
yeah,
But this is the kind of game that Grixis Control loves to play, which is
exactly.
just trading off resources, and that's not the goal of the Dark Depths deck in this matchup. The Dark Depths deck should be seeking to use its discard to exploit holes, whether that's like trying to land a Confidant that's unanswered or trying to like find an opening for Merit Lodge. So this game is playing exactly how Kenji wants it to.
Right. So now I guess. Well, let's look at it from both sides now. So my next question for you, Bob, is Fujita can he still win this game? And if he can still win this game, what does he need to draw, in order to win? And how soon does he need to draw it? Because to me, the
Oh
game.
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, Fujita can definitely win this game. This Dark Depths deck is so powerful in that like you just really need a couple cards to win.
Hmm.
He has the answer for the Blood Moon, so really all he would need to draw. I mean, he needs two combo pieces. He doesn't have any right now, and that's the tough thing. So he just needs two combo pieces before Kenji like assembles something a little bit more permanent. Um, and because of the Bitter Blossom, the edicts are not going to help much. So
Okay. Well, we'll
Ghost
go.
Quarter.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're very close to a spot where he might be considering. Well, okay, I was gonna say Ghost Quartering his own land, but then I just realized that he lost the double black spells anyways.
Right. So.
So
Ooh. Hello, Tully. Okay. So here it is. Olagon's command going to probably chip away another creature and then buy back the Baleful Strix here. Um,
mhm.
Now that's interesting. I guess Kenji still has the Diabolic Edict. I wonder if he's picked up like another copy of Snapcaster in the meantime. I do like that he's using his mana here. Like you could theoretically sit on the Snapcaster Mage for a while, but this way at least especially since he's going to get back the Baleful Strix, he can. Ooh, now look at that. So we have the Ghost Quarter on the Dryad Arbor to sort of make the best of the worst situation.
Mhm.
Getting the basic land to make this Blood Moon really just not look that good. But yeah, like I'm saying, using your mana here, just sort of like pushing yourself ahead a little bit, even though you're dropping your shields down some, is definitely like an okay thing to do. Yeah, I mean, and we also did see Fujita draw, or he did board into some copies of Choke, right? Like drawing that off the top right here would be super super strong too.
Mhm. Yeah, and you see Kenji being very patient with the Blood Moon. He's never casting it while Fujita has mana up.
Right.
Um, and that means that Fujita basically can never really tap out.
But like in this exact board state, Blood Moon doesn't even look that good for Kenji, to be completely honest.
Right. I guess like there's no threat of being comboed out, and um, he also has the green and the black. So like, if at some point you do play the Blood Moon, it's just gonna eat like a removal spell in all likelihood.
Okay. The Lightning Bolt, Kenji did leave it in his deck, and he is going to shuffle it away. Whoa. Is he actually just edicting here?
Yeah.
Oh no, there's a Hymn to Turok on this deck. My bad. That's why. Okay. That makes sense.
That would make more sense if he only had like two cards in his hand,
Uh-huh.
but it seems kind of weird to me. But I guess he just has a bunch of dead cards, so he's like, yeah, discard all these. I don't care. They don't really do anything.
Wait, did he actually
Um,
just like dodge and like he still has the Blood Moon in his hand? Like I don't think I saw him put it on top of his deck.
I'm not sure.
Right? Because that would be hilarious. Just discard 2 lands and then have the Baleful Strix in my hand. Keep the blood. The Blood Moon's not even like that good, so it's okay if it does get. Wow, yeah, he just like got super lucky. But yeah, like the Blood Moon's not even that good, so like I could see Kenji just being okay with like letting it get discarded.
Yeah, I don't love not blocking because like if you're the Bitter Blossom player, like your turns are counting down. Like I would just be trading these tokens off as much as I can
Mm-hmm.
because your life total is a very important resource when you have Bitter Blossom out.
Yeah, and we can even see here Kenji actually just drew the bolt off the Baleful Strix, so he's actually trying to end the game here off the back of that Bitter Blossom.
Hmm.
And I want to
I
give
like that.
I want to give a shout out to Elf Kid, earlier who said, I think the Bitter Blossom is going to win this game. He didn't actually say who they would win the game for, so look at that 200 IQ shot called right there. Um, yeah,
He
I know
saw
this,
the future.
he did. Yeah, this is really, really interesting.
So it looks like he's going for the Blood Moon here, which is a nice spot because it kind of like forces him to answer it, and like he'll spend his turn doing so.
Yeah, exactly. And also off of blue, blue, black.
Did you just draw surgical? Or yeah, surgical. See, like again in this matchup, it just like doesn't do that much. You
Right.
already have enough answers to edict. So like I just really don't know what it's for.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe and I think I completely agree with you. I mean, well, this is a situation. Surgical extraction in these kind of matchups is typically like when you bring it in, it has the ability to like sometimes tag the best cards, but it also has this like the downfall of just like looking embarrassing like in situations like these. So I guess it's like a very high ceiling, low floor kind of card. AKA, it's a little bit inconsistent. But the times when it isn't, when it is like really good, is it's really good. And so maybe some of the cards that he boarded out were, in his mind, a little bit worse than the surgical extraction. But crop rotation and dark depths are, you know, I would probably have kept both of those cards. It's actually interesting now that I think about it. Like the way that Junya has sideboarded, I wonder if that is actually coming back to punish him because he really just needs cards in his engine. Okay, actually,
Yeah.
it's
I
really
mean,
interesting
yeah,
construction.
you can't take out Dark Depths. The only matchup I would consider shaving Dark Depths is the Mirror, and that's because like you don't want to just play Dark Depths and then your opponent will stage it unless you're about to combo off. That is the only matchup I would consider shaving Dark Depths, even against something like Death and Taxes or lands where they have plenty of answers to the 2020. You can't cut the card
Right.
because it's your game plan for winning. In those kinds of matchups where they do have a lot of answers to your 2020, you still need to figure out a way to make that 2020 and get around what they're trying to do.
Right.
And more often than not, that means Sylvan Safekeeper.
Yeah, and see, like all this damage that he's taken from the Baleful Strix is actually added up because if you look at his hand, he's stuck with the Thoughtseize, he's stuck with Dark Confidant.
Yeah, like
Um,
none of his cards are castable. Like all of his cards are better for his opponent than him.
yeah.
So
Um,
I would have been aggressively trading my creatures, and yeah, it's tough to see a way out of this now, especially given that we know Kenji has a bolt in his hand. So I think this game's over.
yeah. I mean, we might even actually see Shinya like trophy his own Bitter Blossom, as disgusting as that sounds, and then he can get another land, and then actually could he just do that this turn, like trophy the Bitter Blossom, and then play the Dark Confidant or something?
Oh man, playing the Dark Confidant, love it, love it. Um, yeah, he could have trophied his own Bitter Blossom.
Wait, no, there's a Blood Moon, so he can't.
But first of all, he doesn't have any more lands, any more basic lands in his deck. So it would just be a straight like 2 for 0 kind of. Um, I
You,
think I think I think Shunya has accepted that he's lost, and he's like, you know what? I want to have my own cards kill me. Um, so yeah. All right. Well,
Wait, riddle me this, Bob. How many basics are in this Dark Depths deck? More than two,
just
right?
two.
Oh,
No,
really?
just two.
That's
Yeah.
insane.
The mana base is actually shockingly bad.
Uh huh.
You only play the list I was playing only played 13 green sources, including the Mox Diamonds. And if you're gonna board out the Mox Diamonds, then you go potentially down to like 9 green sources, which
Okay.
is really low.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Secretly, this Black Green deck is actually a three-color deck, right? Because you've got like four stages, and you've got like four Dark Depths, and then none, like even you play some Wastelands too, and none of those really tap for mana or like colored mana. So and you're playing black spells. So yeah, I could see you getting away with playing just two basics. Oh my goodness, that's insane! This is the new rule.
Okay, so yeah, so that's cool. This is like yeah. You want to explain what's going on?
Well, yeah, I mean, as of Rivals of Ixalan, there was a rulings change for Blood Moon slash or like as effects. Or I don't really know how to explain it, but the idea is that Dark Depths no longer enters the battlefield with counters, and so when you kill the Blood Moon, the text on Dark Depths is that something becomes active again. There's no creature, there's no counters on it, so then it sacrifices itself, and you get to make the Merit Lodge. This was an insane backdoor play by
Yeah, but he just lost the lightning bolt right there.
Okay,
Um, so
which is
yeah,
crazy
that
because
is that is definitely a really cool thing about Dark Depths and Blood Moon now is that you don't need the other combo piece. All you need is Dark Depths plus Decay. So um, basically what that means is for the Blood Moon matchups, like it's actually significantly easier to combo than it used to be before the rule change. So it was pretty cool to see that, but unfortunately he just drew the Dark Depths a little bit too late,
maybe that was his
and
plan the whole
he's
time.
gonna
Like he was just gonna hope to draw into like a crop rotation or a dark depths, and then
Yeah,
like
he could have if he had been blocking earlier and just saved that one life point,
yeah,
then he could have turned around and then top decked something like something to get Sajiri step,
right.
and then he could have won despite being down this entire game. Like that's how good this deck is. Um, so uh, yeah, I mean, definitely huge congratulations to Kenji. He played a really tough matchup. He played it pretty well, and he was able to squeak out a win.